This is CNN Breaking News.
Hello, thanks very much for joining us. I'm Jim Sciutto in today for Frederica Whitfield, and we are following breaking news today. The sad news, the comedian Jerry Lewis, dead at the age of 91. Best known for iconic movies like The Nutty Professor, for all the signature slapstick characters during his run with Dean Martin. He was also, and this is very key, a humanitarian. He hosted the annual Muscular Dystrophy Telethon for many years, decades in fact, a true legend that will be remembered by his fans and entertainment, but by the many children whose lives he touched. Larry King sat down.
He was born Joseph Levitch in 1926, but he became known to the world as Jerry Lewis, the zany but lovable fool in films such as The Bellboy and The Nutty Professor. Lewis hit it big at age 20 when he teamed up with another young entertainer, Dean Martin.
Dean was the virile macho, and I was the monkey, and I knew we had lightning in a barrel.
Martin and Lewis became one of the most popular comedy teams in history. Thousands of sold-out performances, 16 hit movies, and dozens of radio and TV appearances. On his own, Lewis signed a 7-year, $10 million contract with Paramount in 1959. At that time, it was the largest contract ever between a studio and performer. Lewis went on to act in or direct shows and movies for several decades. He later offered this advice to fellow entertainers.
Be a hit. Score. Get the audience laughing and happy. That's the secret of success in this business.
He didn't just make audiences laugh. Lewis used his fame to make a difference, taking up the fight against muscular dystrophy. For more than 4 decades, his annual Labor Day telethons helped raise more than $1 billion for research and treatment, and almost always ended with his signature song, "You'll Never Walk Alone."
Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone.
Lewis struggled with his own health problems over the years, including prostate cancer, type 1 diabetes, pulmonary fibrosis, and heart disease.
It's been a long, grueling ride. I've ingested more than 24,000 pills.
But through it all, he kept his sense of humor.
You better laugh at it, because the alternative is not funny.
Well, another legend, Larry King, sat down multiple times with Jerry Lewis. Take a look at his recount of the breakup of that famous comedy duo, Martin and Lewis.
That without Dean, I'd have been back doing a record act. I was only good because he was there. I was only good because he was the centerpiece. This isn't false modesty, it happens to be the truth. I'm a brilliant comic when I had my partner standing there. The proof of that is I wasn't quite the same when he wasn't there. Now, when you dig that deep to be that honest, people have got to listen to you. He was the most brilliant comic mind and body.
So you broke it up?
I certainly broke it up because it was time that he got his own. And of course, at the time, I wanted to go on my own. And I said to him the day we discussed it, I said, Dean, let's not do what Joe Louis did. Let's not get knocked out of the ring. Let's quit while we're champs. And we decided that was really the best thing for us. Though we hated one another for a good year because we allowed the break, because that feeling came from another emotional place. But we did the right thing. We knew we did the right thing for him and I and everyone involved.
Larry King joins us now by telephone. Larry, thanks so much for taking the time. I know that through your many interviews with him, you developed a personal relationship. And I'm curious, we spoke a short time ago to Penn Jillette of the famous comedy duo Penn and Teller, and he said that Jerry Lewis was bigger than the Beatles. Place Jerry Lewis for us, if you can, in the pantheon of comedy and acting greats.
Jerry Lewis was incredible. He was a master of physical comedy. He was a kind of genius director. The Nutty Professor, that film, The Nutty Professor, can be shown for eternity as a masterpiece of acting and directing. He had a special quality. Jerry grew old, not too gracefully. He could get angry easily. I know him for 40 years. I'm the dean of the famous Friars Club in New York, and Jerry is the abbot, or was the abbot. Sad to say was. But his telethons, his ability to ingratiate children, I never forget my late wife, Aline, the mother of Kaya and Andy, met him once years and years ago in Miami, and she said to him, "Thank you for the laughter of my childhood." I never forgot that. Jerry Lewis knew how to make people laugh. He was extraordinary and a hell of an actor. He did a couple Law and Orders, one of which got him an Emmy. You had to be around him to see his genius and his quirkiness and his ability to do sight gags. And their in-person act, Martin and Lewis, was the best in-person comedy act you will ever see. Ever see.
At points in his career and their career as they were together, he was the biggest comedy star, one of the biggest movie stars in the world. Put that into some context for us. Is there anyone today who can match that in terms of the appeal, the audience that he commanded, the fame he commanded at his peak?
Oh, that's a good question. In comedy, I can't think of anyone. He was huge. I mean, there was no one bigger. There was no team bigger than Martin and Lewis. Of course, we had Abbott and Costello and other great comedy acts, but nothing can compare to Martin and Lewis. They worked off each other. Dean was very funny and a great straight man. Jerry was a very accomplished singer, knew music well. They blended well together, and when they broke up, when they got together, when Frank Sinatra, after they had broken up, Sinatra brought Dean Martin as a surprise to the muscular dystrophy telethon. And when he walked on, I think you must have a clip there somewhere. When he walked on, when Frank Sinatra brought Martin on and looked at Lewis, and they stood there, they hadn't been together for a couple of years, the audience went crazy, and Jerry Lewis said, "Are you working?" It was just a beautiful line. The pictures where you see him very overweight there, that's when he had that really bad illness, and they had him on prednisone, and with prednisone you gain a lot of weight. At the end of his life, he was very, very slim. He'd lost a lot of height. He used to be like 6'3". I think Jerry was, at the end, was like 5'9". But there'll never be another Jerry Lewis. And you asked if anyone today is that big, the answer is unequivocally no.
I want to ask you one more thing, because we'd be remiss, it wouldn't be a complete biography not to mention his charity work for all those decades, Jerry's Kids, the support for muscular dystrophy. You know, I asked his publicist just a short time ago if he ever explained to her why that was such a key part of his life, and she said no. He said that it was very private to him. Did he ever talk about that with you, about his dedication to Jerry's Kids as we knew them?
I could never get him to answer that. He was a great interviewer. He was very responsive. But on that question, why muscular dystrophy, he never would give an answer. And I have no idea. That telethon started in New York, and he did it with a radio host named Barry Gray, and Dean Martin did the first one with him in New York only. It was just a New York City telethon. And then it became, of course, worldwide, but never explained why muscular dystrophy, and I guess that mystery went with him to the grave.
Well, Larry King, thank you so much for your thoughts there. I know you had the honor of interviewing him so many times, built a relationship through the years. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. We have as well on the phone Carol Burnett, a comedy legend in her own right, who knew and worked with Jerry Lewis through the years. Carol Burnett, thanks so much for joining us. If I could just ask you now, what do you remember most about him?
Well, I was so thrilled. Actually, it was back in the Covered Wagon days when I was doing the Gary Moore show, and he came on, and I was in awe of him, but he made me feel better. I mean, we were going to do a sketch together, and I mean, wow, you know, he was one of my favorite comedians ever when he and Dean were together. And so we did this very funny sketch where we were the two nerdy, rich kids whose fathers want them to get married. And it was a very funny sketch because we were both nerds, and Jerry was just fabulous to me. So years later, when I had my own show, we invited Jerry to come on, and he did, and we repeated that sketch. And he was absolutely hysterical. He could do things with his body that, I mean, he wasn't short, really, you know, but he would create the type of character and the neurosis he wanted to get across, and his voice could go up several octaves when he was supposed to be scared or insecure. And we had a moment in the sketch where we both started to dance as we were getting to know each other. Well, he had the audience. I mean, our audience was just dying with laughter because he did such wonderful things with his body. And anyway, I miss him. As I said, I saw him the last time. I was really thrilled when he asked me to present an award to him from the Los Angeles Film Critics Association. That was in 2014, and we sat together. It was a luncheon, and he was delightful. And one other thing, I don't know, when he was doing my show, he was a savant when it came to remembering numbers. For instance, during rehearsals, he would ask several of our dancers and crew members what their social security numbers were. And they would tell him. He wouldn't write anything down. And the next day, he would come into rehearsal, and he'd say, "Hi, 478-35746. He remembered everybody's social security number. He had that kind of a brain. And he was very sweet to me. I had heard at one point a long time ago where he had been quoted saying that women can't be funny. Well, he certainly didn't feel that way around me, and I heard him compliment Lily Tomlin and Madeline Kahn. So I don't know where that came from. Maybe he changed his mind, but it's a sad day. But what a wonderful legacy Jerry Lewis leaves for all of us, you know, and in his films and television appearances and all, we can still go back there and laugh. You know, he provided belly laughs, and you don't get too many belly laughs nowadays. A lot of comedy they feel has to be edgy, you know, but his comedy holds up. Kids, grown-ups, everybody laughs at him. He just had that spark of genius, and I'm glad he lived as long as he did, and I think he had a wonderful life.
Well, Carol Burnett, I'll tell you, just as a fan, I watched your show so many times when I was a kid. You gave me a fair number of belly laughs as well, so
thank you.
I appreciate that, me and my sisters. But thanks so much for your thoughts, so personal. As it seems to me, having spoken to a few people this last hour, he left a very personal mark on so many beyond his comedy. So thanks for sharing those with us.
Well, thanks for asking me to be a part of your show.
We continue to follow the breaking news of the passing of Jerry Lewis, the comedy legend, the humanitarian legend as well, the sponsor of Jerry's Kids for so many decades, dead today, surrounded by family, we're told, passing peacefully in his home at the age of 91.
Atom bombs, Cape Canaveral and false alarms. Half the universe is up in arms. So I flip a little too until I'm holding you.